Hello and welcome to another Salesforce and Trailhead tutorial with myself, Jonathan Fox. And today I wanted to go through some of the um, basics of SOQL because be it admin, developer, consultant, whatever role you play, SOQL can be extremely useful.
So, starting off then, what does SOQL stand for? SOQL stands for Salesforce Object Query Language. This is very similar to SQL or SQL, and that stands for Structured Query Language. So, what does it do? It allows you to form a statement, be it in the query editor within the developer console or within an Apex class or method or function, and it allows you to search for a set of records within your org based on certain criteria and produces a result. You can filter these and manipulate them in lots of different ways, but essentially you are searching through your org for records.
So, keywords that you're going to use in SOQL, the ones that will be there to help you determine which results you get back are the following words. So, you've got select, from, which select and from, I would imagine probably self-explanatory for you, but we'll go through them in a minute anyway. Then we've got a couple of extra ones that we can use to refine the results. So where, group by, limit, and in. So the basic structure of a SOQL statement is select. So you're always going to have select and from in any of the statements. Select ID from account is a perfect example. So what you would be doing here is you're selecting the field name that you want from the object. So in this case, I'm selecting the ID from account, and this would return all accounts and show me their IDs. So what I'm going to do, I'll give it a practical demonstration so we can actually see it happen. So we've got the developer console open here. For any of you that don't know how to open the developer console, click the cog up at the top here, the setup, and click developer console. And when we're in the developer console, you have something down here, a tab called query editor. And it gives you a bit of help text there showing you how to form a SOQL statement. But what we'll do is we'll select ID from account and hit execute down at the bottom here, and that will show me the IDs of all my accounts in this org. Now, just a point to note that case is not sensitive here, so if I click ID, it will still return the IDs. My account can be in capitals, it'll still return, and I can have select in the capitalized case like that, and it still doesn't matter. However, best practice and makes it easier to read, I personally think, is when you have the SOQL statements, so the SOQL words, keywords in capitals, and everything else is capitalized or as the API name is in your org. So here you go, you get the results here, you get how many rows, and you get the IDs here. And moving on then, so what we've got next is adding some conditions. So we've got the general select ID from account, but we don't want every single ID. We want to narrow it down a bit. So we can add in the where clause, and that is a condition. It's almost like your filter on your reports and your list views. And what you're saying is where the account number is not null. So this will bring back all account IDs as long as they have an account number on their record. So that's where I'm saying account number is not null. There's a couple of other operators that you can have after the field name there, the field API. I've used not null, not equal to null, So the exclamation mark equals is not equals, but you can use equals, greater than, less than, and then if you throw in the exclamation mark, it turns it into not. That's just an example. There are a bunch of others, but they're your main ones that you'll use. And again, what we'll do is we will give it an example. So open the developer console, and we will do count number is not equal to null. And there we go. We've got 11 this time, so one of them didn't have an account number in. Let's move on to the next SOQL statement. So this time we've got a different relationship. So we're looking at relationships this time. So you might want to query lookup fields and get their values from it. So what we're doing here is selecting the ID in the first name from the account. But I'm also wanting to know what the account's name is, from the contact, sorry. And I'm wanting to know what the account name is. If I was just to select ID, first name, account ID from contact, so if I just SOQL the lookups API, I'll get a record ID, and I don't want that. I want something useful. So I want to actually get the account name. So what we do when it's a relationship is account dot name. We put the dot in there, and it allows us to then query anything on that field's object. So we'll show what that means, and I will show you in the developer console. So we're going to select the ID, the first name and the last name, and the account name from the contact object. And what we get here is we get the ID, first name, last name, and we actually get the account name here, the account dot name. We can add some extra fields in. So I didn't mention this earlier, but you want to add some more fields. You can do by just typing the API name and then adding a comma. So as long as the comma separated, apart from the last one, you can add in as many as you want. Here we go now. So I've queried the account's description, and then it returns the actual description on that account object for that record. And a real neat thing you can do if you're using the developer console and you notice something that you need to change, you can actually go into and inline edit. So I can actually change what that record is now and hit enter, and you can see that it is saving. This red triangle here is showing you that you've edited it, and it will be saving. If you click save rows, there we go, gone. You can also do a couple of other things. Accessing Salesforce, you can create new open detail page or open the edit page, which is really cool. So if I click that, what you'll now see is the contact that I was highlighted on, and the rest of them are quite self-explanatory, but there you go. You've got a bunch of options down here. Refresh the grid if you think that something's changed in the meantime. You can insert rows, delete rows. Really cool to play around with. So moving on, what I now want to do is go in a little bit more detail, selecting a custom field. So standard fields, you use the dot notation, you contact dot create date, but because this is a custom field on my account, there isn't a contract field on my account object as standard. I've added that in as a custom field. If you're doing a relationship between custom fields, you need to double underscore and then R, because it's a relationship and it's a custom object, custom field. And I'll show that now. So we'll head back to the developer console. And execute. And what? Oh, there is none in this org. Let's just quickly add that in. And we'll add in the contract lookup that we need for this one. There we go. So now we've got the custom field on the account. If we execute, you'll now see that it's returning the created date because I've done the relationship for the created date on the contract. However, it is null. There is no accounts with contracts, but that's okay. We know it's still working because it's pulling back this field. It's actually querying it now. If I just wanted to query the actual field itself, it isn't a factor of just contract because it's a custom field. Rather than the _R, it's a _C. And you'll notice that from when you've been creating custom fields yourselves, and the API name is in _ and a C. And you can see that here, for example, _C, _C. So you change the C to an R if you want to query anything on that object via the lookup. Okay, so moving forward, I want to search related records this time. So I'm going to select the account name from account, but I'm also going to select contact's first name, last name from account.contacts. So what this is saying is I'm going to get the account name and I'm going to get all related contacts, first names, last names. And this is the relationship API, and I'll show you where to grab that from in a second. So we'll throw this onto the developer console and it'll make a bit more sense of what I'm trying to show you here. So what I've got is I've queried the account name, which I've got there. In fact, I didn't need that, so that was just overcomplicating it. Queried the name from account. And what I want is all contacts, last names. Oh, I missed an ID. We'll throw in first name in there as well. There we go. Throw in the first name. There we go. So what I'm now getting is, if we expand this so we can see it all, I have got, related to Edge Communications here, I've got Sean Forbes, but I've also got Rose Gonzalez. Rose Gonzalez. So these are the two related contacts to this account. That's what I'm saying here. I'm getting the account name from account, but I'm also getting all related contacts for that account. And we do that by doing a second query inside the first query. The account.contacts. Now, that is because we're querying from the account object, but we're querying the .contacts. We want the contacts object, and it's an S because it's plural. It's a related list. So we get a bunch of results, and that's great, but they're not really in any sort of order, and this is where the next keyword comes into play. And we want to grab the order by, and we want to choose how we order them. Just like when you click the arrows at the top of the column headers on a related list, on a list view, sorry, you can sort them in whatever order you want. So in this example, what we are doing is we're going to order them by their last name first and then their first name. And what that does is it puts them in alphabetical order by their last name, and then should they be the same, then you get them by the first name. However, we'll change bond to bar. We'll save that. Refresh the grid. Ah, there we go. Refresh the grid, and they have now switched places because it's now going off the first name. Okay, so what else can we do with the order by? We can order by, we can also group by. And group by is a really useful way to group records because you might want to categorize them in your search results. And we'll come on to count in a minute as well. So I want to select the lead source from lead, and I want to group it by the lead source. This is for me to figure out what lead sources I've got. So instead of having select lead source, we'll take off that for now and get in the same one a bunch of times for every record. We want to group by the lead source, and then it gives us the unique values. So now we've only got these 4. We know what our lead sources are, but now I don't know how many are in web, how many are in phone inquiry. So I want to count by the name. And when I count by the name, this allows me, we're using the name as the unique identifier here, and we could use anything else, so we can stick ID in there if we want, because that's probably more unique. And what we get here is we know now that 7 records are by web, 4 are from phone inquiry, and 4 are from partner referral, and 7 are from purchase list. So it gives us a bit more granularity. And then we can throw in other fields if we want. We can expand that further with the other things that we've learned. Fantastic. So that's what we've just done there. We've done group by. Now I want to do limit. So there are different occasions where you might want to limit, and it is completely dependent on what you do in your SOQL statement, but potentially I want to limit. So we're going to do back to the same one again from account. But this time I only want 2. And that will only give me the first 2 records it finds. You can limit any number you want, so we'll do 10 this time. And there we go, we've got 10 rows. Limit just gives you a bit more flexibility in how many you want to return. So, wherein? This is a good example for Apex when you're using SOQL statements within your Apex. For example, here I'm going to create a list of string, and my list is going to contain test name and test name 2. And when I do a SOQL query and cast it into a list of contacts, and I select the first name and last name from contact where the first name is in list of strings. And that is because we are now looking for first name in list of strings. It will search this list of strings, and if it finds test name or test name 2 in the first name on the contact object, it will return that record. So I'm using where the first name is in this list, and this list contains a bunch of strings here. So I'm asking it to look in this list and compare this list to the first names on the contact object and then return any of them that match. So that's the where in clause. Just a point to note, we have got some colons here, and I explained what the colons do here. They use the colon to bind for access to a variable in a query. That means we have got a variable here. It's this list of strings, but we need this SOQL query to have access to it, so we have to bind it using these colons. The equal operator is a simple equal operator in a query. However, don't mistake it for the equal operator in an Apex statement here, because what we've got is this is saying the list of strings is a new list of strings and it contains these. That is not a comparison. that is a setting that variable. So it's just a point to note that equals is different when it comes to a SOQL statement, and it is different in an Apex piece of code. So just remember the differences. If you want to compare when you're using Apex, it's a double or a triple equal sign. And then when you're using the in operator in a SOQL, you want to generally refer it to a list or set, because you're asking it to look in that list or in that set. So you would compare it to that the name of that variable. I really hope this was useful for those who want to dive into SOQL a little bit more. Any questions, fire them into the comments. If I've mentioned anything slightly wrong, I do apologise. I hope I haven't, but do feel free to correct us in the comments below, and I look forward to next time. Until the next video, thank you.